yarn, hook, stitch marker, stuffing. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect crochet. But Nova accidentally added one extra ingredient, her creative chaos. And thus, Nova Gnome Creations was born.
Hello my beautiful friends, and welcome back to my channel. This is Nova Gnome Creations and I'm Nova, and today I have a little tutorial for you. I am going to be showing you how to make flower hair ties. So this pattern is really adaptable to what you want it to be. It can be flower hair ties. I'm going to specifically show you how to do a sunflower hair tie, but you can do this pattern with any flower pattern that you like. You can do this tutorial with any flower pattern that you like. I will also explain to you how to modify your flowers in case you want to do maybe a flower like this one, you know, where you have the smaller center and your petals are a little bit different shaped. And of course, whatever yarn colors that you choose to use will also change the way that your flowers look, the way that your leaves look on your little vines. But I will walk you through this step by step on how to make the flower hair tie, or if you wanted it to be a flower headband, you could just do some more flowers, make it a little bit wider, and then this would sit on the top of your head and your vines would go around behind your head and tie. You could even do a flower crown that same way if you wanted to. So let's get into it. So for this project, you're actually not going to need a whole lot of things. You're going to need a yarn color for the center of your flower. I use a worsted weight yarn for this. If you would like to use something else, you can. This is not a pattern that needs to work up to a specific size because you can make as many flowers as you want to achieve the width that you want to cover. So if you want to use a thinner yarn, you can. You could even use a thicker yarn. But I am using a worsted weight and I'm going to be doing brown for the center of mine. You're also going to want a color for your petals and you're going to want a color for your vines. Some examples of like a worsted weight acrylic, which is what these are Red Heart Super Saver, I Love This Yarn, Bernat, Premium, Premier, Value Yarn. Basically most of the Value yarns are a worsted weight acrylic. Just Yarn from the Dollar Tree, the Premier Just Yarn, that's also acrylic. It's also a worsted weight, I'm sorry. So those are just some examples, but basically that's what I'm using is a worsted weight yarn. And I'm going to be doing the sunflower, but you can do any flower that you want to just by changing the color that you do your petals in. And I will also explain to you while I do the tutorial how to just do a slightly different shape if you would like to do like different types of flowers. You can also use any flower that you want to. If you have like a favorite flower pattern, and then you can use the method that I show you to connect everything together. So the other things that you're going to need are a hook that is equivalent to your yarn size. So I'm using a 5mm because I'm using a worsted weight yarn. You're going to need a sewing needle, yarn sewing needle, and a stitch marker. You can use just like one of the little plastic stitch markers, like, let me grab one if I could pick it up, like this one. Or you can use, you know, this little cute clip kind if you want to. And you will need a pair of scissors. So that is all you need. And like I said, it's really straightforward and easy. Easy ingredients for our little potion of making this headband or hair tie, depending on what you want to do. So the first thing that you're going to do is grab that color that you're using for the center of your flower. We're going to be making a center for our flower. I'm going to show you how to make a sunflower center, which is going to be a little bit bigger than maybe a different type of flower. It's going to look like this. If you were making a flower that has a smaller center, then you can do the same thing, but use single crochets. and you will have a smaller center. So you can do exactly what I'm showing you, but instead of doing double crochets, do single crochets and you'll get a smaller center. You can also change the stitch count of how many stitches you're putting into this magic circle that we're making. And if you do that, you will end up with a smaller center. Just make sure you have an even number of stitches because that will make it so that you can work your petals. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is work a magic circle. If you need a little bit more help with how to do a magic circle, I will link in the description box. I have a little tutorial for how to do a magic circle, but just real quick, I will show you. You take these two fingers and you lay your yarn with the short end facing you, the end not connected to the ball. Then you grip it with your thumb right here and you wrap this around. You're going to wrap it around until it overlaps. See how it creates an X? Then you're just going to secure that in place however you want. I like to just use my ring finger, tuck it down over there. And then you're going to take your hook. You're going to go under this first loop and grab the second loop. Then you're going to pull the second loop through and turn your hook so you have a loop on your hook. And then that yarn that you were securing underneath, you can just pull through and make your new loop. And that is how you make a magic circle. All right, so when you work in a magic circle, you work over both the circle itself and this little tail that you created. And you do that so that when you're done, you can pull on this and cinch it closed. So for the sunflower center, we're going to be working a double crochet. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we are going to chain one. This chain one is not gonna count as anything. Don't stitch marker it, don't count it as a stitch or anything. This is just to get to height. Then we're just going to put 16 double crochets into our circle. So there's our first double crochet. If you don't know how to do a double crochet, you just yarn over your hook, go through your circle, yarn over, pull up that loop. Now you've got 3 on your hook. You're going to yarn over one more time, pull through, yarn over another time, and pull through. And that's how you do a double crochet. Now you see I have 2 double crochets. You can go ahead and take your stitch marker and mark that first double crochet, and that will help you to remember where the beginning is of your round. It'll also help you so that you don't try to, look at that chain one and be like, oh, that's a stitch, right? So I do recommend marking your stitch. And now we're just going to be working 16 double crochets in total. One, two, three, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And if at any point you're working and you're like running out of space, you just can hold on to your circle and your little tail and just pull these stitches over like that. So you give yourself some more room. 12. 13. 14. 15 and 16. All right, so now that you've got your 16 stitches, you can go ahead and grab onto your little tail here, hold onto your stitches on like the last couple of stitches, and just pull on this tail until you have closed your flower. Now for this particular project, if your flower is open just a little bit, it's not a big deal. But you'll want to, pull it closed until it kind of clicks into place. And then you'll weave in this tail later to keep it from coming out. I actually, for this project, do not overly pull it shut. I just pull it shut, till it closes. And it may, before we get to the end, just reopen a tiny bit. And a lot of times I just leave it. For this particular project, I actually do. If you don't like doing the magic circle method that I just showed you, but you do know how to do the chain method, you can feel free to do that instead. If you struggle with the magic circle, you will have the same result. Just do your little chain method and put your 16 double crochets into it. All right, so I took my stitch marker out because we are going to go ahead and go back into the top of that first stitch that we made, and we are going to slip stitch, which just means you're going to go through that first stitch, yarn over your hook and pull through, and then pull through the loop that you had on your hook already. Then we're just going to yarn over our hook and pull through again, which is a chain, and then we're going to cut off. I like to make that little chain because it creates a knot when you pull your hook out. So, doop, and then look at this. Now you have a nice little knot end here, so you don't have to worry about it coming undone. And like I said, we will weave in these tails. I'll show you real quick how to weave in this tail. You're just going to put the yarn onto your yarn needle. And I'm just going to do a very simple weaving in. I honestly should have probably left myself a little more tail. I never do. I'm so bad about that. But anyway, you're just going to go underneath of the stitches in the middle here for the magic circle. Your goal is to go underneath of them, but not come through the front. So you just want to kind of go in the middle where your magic circle was originally. And what I like to do is work my way forward a little bit more. So kind of overlapping where the magic circle had already previously gone around. You're basically wrapping it around again. And then once you've wrapped it around a little bit, I just wrapped it around about halfway again. What I do is I skip like one loop. So you'll notice I'm not going back in at the exact same spot I came out. I moved over a tiny bit. And then I turn around. I go in and I come back the way that I came. Don't mind these little pet hairs. They get in everything, I swear. And then I just go back the way I came because looping back just really locks in your work. Locks in your sewing. And you can do this as many times as you need to feel like it's secure. You can double back. You can keep going around. Like, literally the sky is the limit on how much you weave in your tail. If you would like to just weave it in a ton, then, and that makes you feel better, then do it. But this is what's going to keep your magic circle from coming undone. So it is an important step. You definitely don't want to just cut your yarn off before weaving it in. All right, so this next part right here, since we already made this lovely little knot, I am actually going to cover with my stitches as I work my petals. So you are done with your center color for this flower. You can set it aside if you'd like to. If you would like to work these in stages, you can actually make your centers and then move on to making the petals. I do that sometimes. So if you would like to do that, you can go ahead and pause here and just make up some more centers. For the hair tie version of the sunflower one, I made 2 of these. So if you're making the hair tie version, you might want 2 of these. If you're using a worsted weight yarn and you want it to be the same size as mine, that is what I'm showing you this tutorial, like walking you through all the details. I'm going to be showing you how to make the hair tie version, which is, let me grab it out and show it to you real quick. It looks like this. So if you're making the same one that I am, you will want 2 of these. And then here is an example of if you make smaller centers to your flowers and do a slightly different type of flower. So you can really customize these however you want to. And if you want to make a hair band, like a headband, you can actually put more flowers on them, do like a little kind of a flower crown. You could put these up at the front, you know, where you would put a headband on your head and then tie these around behind your head. You'll just want to make your vines longer and potentially add more flowers. Like I would do 3 sunflowers or 4 sunflowers even if you were making it into a headband instead of a hair tie. But anyway about it, that is what it will look like. So if you would like to, go ahead and pause and make your centers, or you can make the whole flower and then come back and just make the flower again when you want to. All right, the next thing that you're going to need to grab is your petal color. And take your circle. I like to start like further back, give myself some stitches before I get to here and need to cover this up, but you can attach on anywhere. There's no like you have to attach on at a specific spot. So to attach on, what we're going to do is we're going to insert our hook into a stitch, and then we're going to yarn over our hook. Leave yourself a little bit of a tail. You're gonna work it in here in a second, and then go ahead and pull through. Okay? Let me show you that one more time in case that was confusing. You go through that stitch with your hook, and then you take your yarn and you literally just lay it across your hook, and you're going to pull that through. Then you're going to take the yarn that is attached to the ball, not the short end. You want to make sure you're crocheting with the end attached to the ball, and you're going to yarn over your hook and you're going to pull through. Now that you've attached on, we are going to chain 1. And I am going to work over my tail as I go. So what that means is I'm going to hold my tail alongside my upcoming stitches. And when I work through my stitches, I'm also going to be working over this tail, and it'll just carry it along and hide it in my stitches. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can always just leave it out and not crochet over it, and you can sew it in when you're done making your petals. But I am going to crochet over it, so I'm going to hold it alongside my work. All right, so this chain 1, the same as before, does not count as a stitch. It might kind of look like a chain 2, and that's just because you just slip stitched on. All right, so we're going to work our first petal into the same stitch that we just chained out of. This is going to be what each petal is. This repeat that I'm going to show you, you're going to do it over and over until you work your way around. So for one petal, working into the same stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. And then we are going to do a triple crochet. If you don't know what a triple crochet is, you go over, I'm so sorry, my cat is playing with a plastic bag. I don't know if you can hear that. You're going to go over your hook just like you would for a double crochet, but then you're going to go over it again. So in total, you'll have 3 loops on your hook. And then you're going to go through your stitch and yarn over and pull up a loop. Then you'll yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. Basically the same thing as a double crochet. You're just doing it one more time for everything. And then we are going to do a little picot. To do a picot, we're going to chain 2. So 1 and 2. And then to close our picot, or like pull it down, you're going to go through this front part of the top of your stitches. So this is your triple crochet right here. This right here is the normal top of your triple crochet before we chain 2. This is the front. These are kind of like front posts of the top of here. There's a little V shape. This is where you're going to work through to bring your picot down, okay? So you're just going to put your hook through that little V spot, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through, and then just continue to pull through and slip stitch those chains down to the top of your triple crochet. And that's what creates our cute little point. If you don't want a pointed flower, you do not need to do the chain part at all. You can actually just completely omit those 2 chains and that slip stitching down, and that will give you a more rounded flower. If you want your petals to be shorter, you can also change the stitches that you're putting into the petal. So if you wanted to, you could do like half double crochets or single crochets, and then work your way up to a double. You could also just put double crochets only in your stitch. Like you could put 3 double crochets in here and that be your petal. So whatever you want to do to create the flower that you want. But we have a double crochet, a triple crochet, and then we did chain 2, slip stitch our way back down here and made this little point. Now we're going to triple crochet again. Remember, that's yarning over your hook twice, which gives you 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to go back down through here, grab your yarn and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. And that gives you a triple crochet again. Then we're just going to double crochet into that same loop. That's going to be the last stitch that we're putting in that loop, and that is your petal. To cinch your petal down, we're going to go into the next stitch right there, and we're just going to do a slip stitch. So you're going to put your hook through, grab a loop and pull up, and then just pull that right through the loop that was on your hook, and that will cinch your petal down nicely. No matter how you decide to do your petal, I recommend doing that slip stitch in the next stitch, just because it will cinch your petal down. Okay? So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to repeat that. And we're going to repeat this all the way around to make all of our petals. So you can feel free to go ahead and start doing that. And I'm going to go ahead and do that too. And don't worry, I will show you how to do it again. And like I said, I am holding this tail alongside my yarn to work over it. All right, I'm going to do a double crochet. I'm going to do a triple crochet. And then I'm going to work that chain 2 and slip stitch down to the top front part of that triple crochet. Then I'm going to triple crochet again. And then I'm going to double crochet. And then go to the next stitch and slip stitch through it. Next stitch, double crochet. Like I said, this is your repeat for the round, so each petal is just going to be the same. We're going to do a triple crochet. Then we're going to chain 2, slip stitch our way back down to the top of that triple crochet. Then we're going to pop another triple crochet into there and a double crochet. And then we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Now we're coming up on the spot, for me at least, where I closed off. So the thing to keep in mind here is that we slip stitched at the end. So it might look like more than one stitch, but this right here was actually our slip stitch chain where we, you know, had the beginning of our work and the end of our work, and then we slip stitched over to close off. So you don't want to work here and here, because this is actually just all the same stitch. It's all coming out of the same double crochet. Okay, so you can work through here if you would like to. You can work through here if you'd like to, or you could work through both spots if you would like to, because they're the same stitch. I hope that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure that you recognized that this was your slip stitch and you don't work into both of these spots, because if you do, you'll end up with an extra, like, part of a petal, like half of a petal. So you should come up onto that whenever you get to it, since you can attach on anywhere, you know. But when you do get to it, you're just going to work your stitches as normal. And I'm going to go ahead and work mine into right here, which is partially under that slip stitch. I'm going to work part of my stitches under the slip stitch part, and part of them a little bit more forward underneath of the like where the actual stitch is. And I'm going to go ahead and work my triple crochet, my chain 2, my slip stitch, my triple crochet. Now, if that was confusing for you, and now you're like, what are you saying to me? Then a good way to make sure that you're on track with your stitches is just to count the tops of the double crochets you have in your circle. So you should have an even number of these, because you work a petal into a stitch and then you do a slip stitch. So basically you have a 2-stitch repeat. You have your petal in one stitch, your slip stitch, your petal in one stitch, your slip stitch. So you'll need an even number of stitches around. That will help you to understand when you get to that slip stitch, if you're confused about like where the actual stitch itself is, what you can do is you can count how many tops of the stitches you have. So for example, I've got the top of a stitch right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. The reason I have 9 is because I've worked half of a stitch, half of my 2 stitch repeat. So this is a petal. Once I work my slip stitch, and you'll notice I am now also working over my brown yarn from finishing up my circle. Now I will have an even number of stitches left. I have 8 stitches left, which makes sense. So if that helps you, basically anytime that you're about to start a petal, you should have an even number of stitches left. And that should help you with that, because if you accidentally went into it twice, you wouldn't have an even number of stitches left. All right, so we're just going to continue to make our petals all the way around. Our petals and then our slip stitches. Our petals and then our slip stitches. And then when I get back to the end, I will show you how to close off your flower. And then you can just make as many of these flowers as you'd like to, depending on what you're making. Like I said, if you're making a hair tie and you want to make it like I'm doing it with worsted weight yarn for the sunflower, you'll actually only need 2 of these. By the way, when your tails that you're working over start to get too short, don't be stressed out about still covering them up. You can always trim them so that they're hidden after you've worked over them for a while. So I usually just work over them until they run out, and then I'll look at it and see if I need to trim them at all so that they're not poking out. And just working double crochet, triple crochet, my chain 2 picot, another triple crochet. Now I'm just working over the brown yarn. And then a double crochet. This is what I meant. I'm still working over the brown yarn. And if you need to, by the way, while you're working, you can always tug on these to make sure that they're not, that they're laying flat. All right, slip stitch. Double crochet, triple crochet, and that chain 2 picot, and then another triple crochet, our last double crochet of the petal, and then we have 1 stitch remaining. We do our little slip stitch through there. Oops, I accidentally pulled my yarn I'm covering up through. Do a little slip stitch through there, and then the same as with the other stitch. This is up to you if you'd like to do this, but I do like to chain 1 just because that'll create a nice little knot, and I like things to be secure. And then you can cut off your yarn and pull up, removing your hook from your work. Now, I worked over this tail, this brown tail, so I don't need to do anything more. I don't need to sew that in or anything. I can just go ahead and cut that off. This yellow one I'm gonna sew in, and I'm also going to show you how I like to do it, just to make it like the end of the flower blend a little more seamlessly. So you'll notice it's slightly less seamless right here where the flower ended. What I like to do is just kind of pop my way up through the next petal, just like the edge of the next petal, and then double back and go back down and through the previous petal that I did. And then pull on it. And that's going to kind of make it just, you don't see where it ends. It makes it seamless and makes it blend. And then you're just going to turn your work over, and to weave in this tail, you just go along the back of the first row of your, well, there's only one row of your flower, and work through it. Same as with this, you want to work through the middle of your stitches so you're not popping through the front, but you're getting it in there. And it's also good if you can kind of catch the fibers of the stitches, like where you're not necessarily going through the whole stitch, you're going through like just some of the fibers. If you can do that for some of the stitches that you go through, that's even better, because then you're like really weaving your tail in where it's not going to come out, because it's literally like woven into the fiber of the yarn. And I just like to go back and forth. Like I said, don't go back in at the exact same spot you popped out. Always like go over one loop or something, or a half a loop even. Just something so you're not just undoing the sewing that you just did. If you go right back into the same spot you popped out, you'll just undo what you did. So I like to skip like a loop, and then I just go back and forth. And I usually just weave it all into one petal or two petals. And then once I feel like that is secure, I go ahead and trim my yarn. And then we've got our flower. So go ahead and make your flower. When you want to make your next flower, stop when you get to the last couple of petals and meet me back, because I need to show you how to connect your two flowers together. You're going to actually work your two flowers together during the crochet process so that you don't have to sew them together. So what I'm going to show you how to do is stop when you get to having two petals left, and then I will show you how to work it so that these actually connect without you having to sew anything. It'll make it so much easier and like more secure. So go ahead and do that, and then meet me back when you've got your next flower with two more petals left to make. Alrighty guys, so when you've got your flower ready and you've got two more petals to do in your flower, you should be ending on a slip stitch, and you should have 4 stitches remaining. Those are going to be where you work a petal, a slip stitch, a petal, and a slip stitch. We are going to go ahead and work this next petal in a way that we connect this to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to work a double crochet into our next stitch. Then we are going to work a triple crochet like so. Oops. And then we're going to do our chain 2 for our picot. And then we're just going to pull up a little extra on that loop so that we don't lose it, and we're going to remove our hook. You're going to go over to your other flower, and you're just going to insert your hook somewhere in the top of this picot stitch that's on here. Okay? Not like an exact science. You can attach it however you want to. If you want to just literally stick it in one of these top loops, you can. If you would like to kind of attach it from the behind, like from one of the behind loops, you can. If you want to make it like a little bit more hidden, you can do that. Either way, you're just going to want to stick your hook somewhere into the top of your picot. Now, if you did a flower that doesn't have a picot, that's totally fine. You're just going to put your hook somewhere in the top of whatever stitch you do have. So like if you did a rounded flower and you have a double crochet, just stick it into the top area of that double crochet, or into like the top back of the double crochet. So once you've got your top of your stitch of your flower on your hook, then you're going to go ahead and put your hook back through the loop that you had been working and pull your yarn tighter again. We're going to pull that loop through the top of that picot that we were working, or that we worked on this other flower, and then we're just going to continue like normal for the rest of this petal. So we're going to slip stitch back down to the top of that triple crochet, just like we've been doing for all the other petals. Then we're going to triple crochet into here again. We're just finishing up our petal like normal. And double crochet. So everything about the petal was normal except for the fact that at the top of those chain twos, we actually attached onto the other flower. All right, so we're gonna work our slip stitch into the next stitch. And then we're gonna do the same exact thing for this next petal. So we're gonna start our petal normal. We're gonna do a double crochet. Then we're gonna do a triple crochet into the same stitch. And then we are going to chain two. Pull up a little extra slack on that loop so that I don't lose it. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to go to the next petal. So we worked into the top that one. We're going to work into the top of this one now. I'm going to come over and I'm going to grab a loop on the next petal, the top of my picot stitch. Then we're going to grab our loop again and we're going to pull it through. And then we're just going to finish that picot stitch by slip stitching down to the top front of the triple crochet we just worked, just like so. And then we are going to do another triple crochet into that same stitch. We're just finishing our petal per normal and double crochet into that same stitch and then slip stitch into the next stitch. And you're just going to end your flower like you normally would. You're going to go ahead and cut off, sew in your tail, all of that good stuff. And then if you are making like a flower crown or something where you're doing more than two flowers connected together, you'll do the same exact thing. You'll literally just work your flower till you get to those last two petals. You'll do the same thing, but you'll do it with these petals attaching on. So you can make your chain of flowers. You can do it as long as you want to, depending on what you're making it for. But for wearing it around a bun as like a little hair tie, just two sunflowers is a good size in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and weave in this tail, and then I'm going to meet you back with the green and show you how to make the vines. All right, and once you have your flowers all connected together, you're going to go ahead and grab your green yarn that you're using for your vines, or whatever color. If you're not using green, that's totally fine. And you're going to turn this sideways. So you're going to be working your vines from these two, like how you connected these two petals together, you're going to want to work across to those same two petals. So make sure that you line it up. It's really easy to tell since it's all symmetrical, but you're going to be want to be working with these two petals. So what we're going to do is we are going to attach on to kind of the back of the top of this picot. If you can figure out, just grab one of these loops. It's really like the same with attaching over here. It's not like an exact science. If you go into any loop up here, you're going to be fine, basically. And then we're going to take this green. You're going to want to leave yourself a decently long tail of this green because we're actually going to do a little bit of crocheting with it and a little bit of sewing with it. So leave yourself like, I don't know, 10 inches of tail. And then go ahead and pull through, put this yarn on your hook and pull through. And then you're going to make a slip stitch or make a chain, however you want to think of it. It's the same thing. That's going to attach us on. And then you're going to go ahead and chain 3. And that is just going to give us a little bit of length. Now we're going to work our first leaf. So to make a leaf, we're going to chain 4, 2, 3, 4, and then we are going to be working 3 double crochets back into that 4th stitch from the chain or from our hook. So we're going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4, and into that 4th chain from our hook, we are going to work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and there are our 3 double crochets. Then we're going to do the same thing we were doing for the petals on the sunflower. We're going to do that chain 2 picot. So go ahead and chain 2 and then slip stitch down to the little front V section of the top of that double crochet. Literally the same thing we've been doing, just instead of doing it on a triple crochet, you're doing it on a double crochet. All right, then we're going to go ahead and work 2 more double crochets into this circle, or into this chain, sorry. And then after you've done those 2 more double crochets, you're going to slip stitch into that same chain that you just did all the other stuff for your leaf. And then you're going to go to the next chain down from your leaf, and you're going to slip stitch into that one as well. And that is how you work your leaf for this. So you can make as many leaves or as few leaves as you want to. My recommendation is to put at least 10 chains in between each leaf. So that means that you'll do at least 10 chains and then the 4 chains that you're going to do to start your leaf, because you actually go back to that first chain of the 4 to start your leaf. So that like chain 4 doesn't count as any space in between your leaves. And the reason I recommend that is because this is about the amount of distance you get in between your leaves if you do chain 10. So if you did less than that, you would have very close together leaves, which is fine. If you want there to be a ton of leaves, go for it. But if you want them to be more spread out like this is about 10 chains in between each leaf. So that would be my recommendation. And for the next step, we're going to go ahead and pull up on our hook just to give ourselves a little bit of slack here so we don't lose our stitch. Then we're going to go back over here and we're going to grab this tail that we started out with. You remember we left a nice long tail to work with. We're going to grab that, and then we're just going to go through the beginning chain that we made. Just go through one of those loops and then yarn over and pull through. And that basically just gets us started with crocheting from there with our chain, or with our tail. So now we're going to do enough chains to bring us over to the other petal of the petal next to us, the tip of the petal next to us. So I'm thinking like 3, maybe 4 chains. Let's see. Yeah, we'll do 4 chains. And then you're going to attach on to the top of that one, the top of that petal. Same way that we just did. You're going to go to the back of the petal and you're going to grab a loop and put your hook through it. Oops, only grab part of the loop. There we go. Then you're going to slip stitch through that loop and that will connect you. So now you've got like a little line sort of connecting these 2 petals. Then we're just going to chain 3, maybe 4 again. The reason we're chaining here is to get to the height of the leaf, to connect to the leaf where we had just made it. So we're going to go ahead and chain 4. Remember, we chained 3 before making our leaf, but since we're coming from over here, chaining 4 gets us to where we need to go to. Now you're just going to get your loop that you had pulled up and left extra long so that you didn't lose it, and put it on your hook. So you're actually going to have 2 working yarns right now at the same time on your hook, and you're just going to go ahead and pull that working yarn so that your loop is cinched up. All right, so you've got 2 loops on your hook, and what you're going to do is you're actually going to work both yarns. So this is the yarn that you were just working from the tail. This is the yarn attached to your ball still. You're just going to hold both of them like you would normally for crocheting. You're going to yarn over with both of them and then pull through both loops. Okay? Then you're going to go ahead and stop working with this short tail that you had left to do a little bit of crocheting with. And you're just going to continue on with your working yarn that's attached to your ball. And you're just going to make some chains. So that was 1 chain that we did with both of them. And then now I'm just going to go ahead and make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And that puts me at where I want to put my next leaf. Now, as far as this chain goes, you are actually done with this now. You can weave this tail in. You can wait until you're done, which is what I usually do, to weave it in. And you'll just weave it into the back of the leaf, just the same way that I showed you how to weave it into the petals. You can weave it into the back of the leaf. You can even use it to sew the leaf a little bit shut if you want to. There is like a little bit of a hole in the middle of the leaf. That's just the design of the leaf. But if you want to sew it a little bit shut, make it a little pretty, I do that sometimes with my first leaf, just kind of prim and put it how I want it, you know, kind of face it how I want it. and sew it like that. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make the petal again, or not the petal, sorry, the leaf. Now that we did our chain 10, we're going to go ahead and make another leaf. Or like I said, you can do as many chains as you want to, but I'm doing chain 10. All right, and then we're just going to chain 4. That's the beginning of our leaf. Then we're going to count back 4 chains from our hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And in that 4th chain from your hook, you're going to double crochet 3 times. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and 3 double crochet. Then we're going to do our chain 2 picot. So you're going to chain 2 and slip stitch into the top front of that double crochet. And then we're going to place 2 more double crochets into the same chain. And then we're going to slip stitch into the same chain. And then we're going to go back 1 chain from where we started, and we're going to slip stitch into there. And that is another leaf done. And then I'll show you one more time. We're going to go ahead and we're going to chain however many chains that you want to do in between your leaves. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to throw 13 this time. Get a little bit more spaced out. And then we're going to do chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to go back your 1, 2, 3, 4 into that 4th chain from your hook and work your double crochet. And your 2nd double crochet. And your 3rd double crochet. Then you're going to do that chain 2, slip stitch into the top front of your double crochet, and then chain 2 once again into the same, or sorry, double crochet 2 into that same chain, and then slip stitch into that same chain, and then go back 1 before you had worked your leaf and slip stitch into that one as well. And that is how you create your vine. And you can do that as long as you want to. I made mine I did 4 leaves on mine and about 10 stitches, 10 chains in between each leaf. You can do it as long or as short as you want to. This is just going to be what you use to tie your hair tie on with. So this part will go on top of your bun. Or if you decided to make a wider one and did more flowers for it, this part will go on top of your head if you're making a headband. And then these will go around underneath and you will tie them. And then once you tie them, you'll have vines hanging down. So you'll obviously tie it tighter than that for a bun, but you get the idea. The longer you make it, the more vines you'll have hanging down. I would say you'll probably tie it more like this tight for a bun. So if you do like 4, the length of like having 4 leaves, you'll probably have about that much vines hanging down. So you can make them as long as you want to, and you're just going to do the exact same thing on both sides. You're just going to do that same attach on method, connecting the 2 petals together, doing the chains and all that. So you can just rewind the video if you need to watch how to do that again, but you'll do the same thing on the other side. And that is all you have to do to make yourself a little flower hair tie. Or flower crown or flower headband. Like I said, just whatever you would like it to be. And you can use any flower design you want to. You're just going to connect your petals together with that little method I showed you, where you basically take the loop and pull it through at the top of one of your stitches and then continue working the rest of the petal the same way. So I hope that you find this helpful. I hope that you make lots of beautiful flower hair ties. If you aren't already subscribed, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, let me know what you thought of it in the comments, and I will see you guys on the next video. Bye guys!